Hey, bonjour mes amis. Comment vas-tu? It is I, your tour guide slash instructor. Hope you guys are having an awesome week, and let's get into it. We're at Module 9, believe it or not, exactly at the halfway point of our semester. Crazy to think, huh? Okay, so this is us. Just for your knowledge, look at these signposts that we have. We have our current event deadline by the end of the week, and we got a new paper. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the textual analysis presentation slash lecture. It's instrumental for what's to come. So our paper is based on that. And actually our thematic unit is called just that, entertainment as political. Ooh. Let's get into Module 9. How are you guys? How's your week going? Okay, so first things first, this video is really just going to be about logistics for the module, and then in the other video, I'll explain the new paper. So let's get into the logistics for this module. So this one that says essay particularities. Here's the stuff from last week in case you want to revisit it, since this whole paper is really predicated upon textual analysis. So it continues from what we learned last week. So there's this if you want to revisit it. Here's the prompt. Ooh, this is cool. Models. Here's their 3 student sample essays. Do check them out. Yeah. As a student, I always found the models to be super helpful, because like when a teacher just went, hey, here's your assignment, go and do it, I'm like, okay, can I see what it could potentially look like? And that's what this is, so check it out, guys. Next one, brainstorm, is part of this week's module. So if you click here, here's the instructions. For those of you who learn best by reading, this is for you. So as we saw in our lecture last week, we learned that to conduct textual analysis, we move from denotative details to connotative ones, right? And as you'll recall, denotation is the surface level meaning, whereas connotation is deeper level meaning. Remember, denotative is just a surface level detail. There isn't any analysis or deconstruction applied to it yet. That could be anything from a plot point, a plot development, a conflict, a resolution, who are the characters, what's the setting, what kind of potential symbols do you see, colors, what is there a recurring color scheme that you see, some golden quotes, this is things that stand out, ideas, values. So check it out. This is pretty crucial right here. This is things that stand out, because see, me as a note taker, always when I was a student sitting in class, I would absolutely write the things that stood out to me. So I'm going to recommend that you do the same thing, and that's going to be the denotation, right? So things that stand out to you, everything from quotes to you're like, man, I keep seeing the color red whenever this main character gets mad, or if you're watching a movie, why? Pay attention to, say, like the audio, like, wow, it got very ominous all of a sudden. What's gonna happen? So jot down those things. Those are just denotation. The connotation is the next level. That's when we get to the deeper level of meaning, right? Just like we saw in the lecture, that's when we get to things like, okay, so what? So what that it gets red, and every time that the protagonist gets angry, everything's red. Like, what might that mean? Maybe, okay, if we're talking about plot points, you're like, okay, this movie ends this way. What does that leave us with as a takeaway, as a viewer, right? So now you think backwards. Okay, well, if that's the message, then just what values or ideas was the director glorifying here? So So here's that. A lot of times too in allegories, we see like setting, like it can point to things like historical moments or things like that. Like I remember when we did a picture book activity in class, I think it was like 2 semesters ago. It was pointing to the historical moment of Japanese internment camp in Manzanar. So then that was a portrayal of that. So this has all that social cultural overtones, emotional meanings, indirect suggestions, connections to real life. Consideration of, okay, well, what are the ideas that are glorified? What are the ideas that are vilified? How do you know? What's the takeaway message of this text or book? So what? Or movie or video game. So here's an example of how you're going to be doing this. I'm a big fan of T-charts. So on one side is going to be denotation. Like for example, what I was saying about, man, every time the main character gets angry, it gets red, or maybe not angry in this particular instance that I was giving. Like maybe every time that the character, like there's like maybe like a funny anime that you're watching. Every time that, say, like the character gets full of passion, like say like there's like red cars or just like red buildings or anything like that. So it could probably represent the passion, la pasión, that drives the protagonist's decision. So here's the directions. Just like you saw from the paper. You're essentially just going to make this list of denotation and connotation, but also you're going to make a working thesis. And so, okay, you need to do both things if you want full credit, because half of the assignment is making the denotation and connotation chart, and then the other half is making the thesis, right? The working thesis. So with that being said, we can resume to the actual worksheet itself. If we return to our canvas here, this is the worksheet. Okay, so yeah, just like I said, take your cultural artifact that you have in mind for your paper, and literally just just get a sheet of paper and just jot notes as you watch it, or reread the story, or replay the game, or rewatch the anime episode or anything like that. So just take those notes, and then this side's for connotation, and then here's your working thesis. I want to give you an example of I think I have it in here. That's the that's the syllabus. Here's an example. Okay, let's pretend I was doing the Lorax by Dr. Seuss. Hopefully you guys, I don't know if maybe you guys remember that one. Well, here's like a working thesis. Always introduce your source, right? In the story The Lorax by Dr. Seuss, the writer forwards a perspective of eco-criticism. Through this view, the ideal of industry is vilified by way of the antagonist, who's known as the Onceler. Conversely, the ideal of nature conservation is celebrated, as embodied by the story's protagonist, known as the Lorax. This message for the importance of nature conservation is just as significant today as it was back in 1971 when Dr. Seuss wrote the story. Okay, so this working thesis here is, I'd be focused, say, on the larger message, right, of the story itself, and then okay, so it's like, well, one, that could be one, like, what's the larger message, and then how is it reflected in the cultural artifact, right? And then, so what? Why does this matter? Like, that's generally a good route to take. Okay, so you're gonna do those two things. Have this T-chart for denotation and connotation. So for each denotation, you're gonna have a connotation here. Yeah. And yeah, so turn that in, and that's due by Sunday, at the end of the week. Okay, next one. Oh, this is gonna help you. You're like, oh man, yeah, I now have to write a paper on this. Like, I'm kind of unsure how to do this. Well, here's an awesome opportunity. So remember we were talking about how denotation is really when you're jotting down your note. Like, you're looking at denotation because things are happening so fast that you often don't really have time to consider things like indirect suggestion, social cultural overtones, implications, which is answering the so what question. Like, generally, when you're in a lecture or watching a movie or cultural artifact, you're just taking notes for things that stand out to you. So do the same, do that. Like, watch this video from Dr. Seuss. Dr. Seuss really, this was more profound than we imagined as kids. A lot of things just went over our heads. So now it's an opportunity to revisit this. So watch the video, jot down your notes, and for this discussion board assignment, create a working thesis on it. Here's my example for what I was talking about for the Lorax. But, like, as you watch this, like, you can consider that, like, if you revisit this chart, here's a big one too. Your thesis should be based on connotation, not just here's what happens in this Nietzsche. And you just talk about the plot. Like, no, say like, what's the larger message, or things like what real life meanings can you glean from it? How are these reflected in the cartoon? And then lastly, why are these important? Okay. So that's that. Remember to also reply to classmate, at least one classmate's post. This week, my friends, my 1A'ers, we have current event 2 due. Also by Sunday. So get that done. Hey! Oh. Hopefully, hopefully you guys saw the playoffs, but Lakers won. Hopefully you hadn't recorded it and were expecting to watch it, but now I'm rooting for the Dodgers. What's funny? I was actually going for the Clippers, but they got out. But yeah, Lakers won. Oh man, I'm going for the Dodgers. I'm watching the baseball too. Okay, so yeah, current event 2 is due. That's it for this week. See? Yeah, that's it for this week. Okay, so that's it for logistics. Now, do watch the other video where we talk about the actual prompt itself for entertainment as political.